Julian Ashcroft, Duke of Thornwick, stands by the window of his study, watching his 4-year-old twins, Edward and Rose, play in the garden below. Their laughter echoes faintly through the glass, a sound that both warms and breaks his heart. It's been 2 years since their mother died, and he knows they need more than what a distant, grieving father and a rotation of nurses can provide. Lady Seraphina Whitmore sits across from him, composed and elegant in emerald silk. They've been engaged for 6 weeks, a practical arrangement. Her father's railway investments will save Ashcroft from financial collapse. She brings breeding, connections, and the promise of stability. The children seemed spirited, Seraphina says, her tone measured. Perhaps too spirited. Structure will be essential. Julian turns from the window. They're children. They're supposed to have spirit. Of course, she replies with a practiced smile, but without their mother's influence, they've grown undisciplined. I shall remedy that once we're married. Something in her tone makes Julian pause, but he dismisses it. She's simply being practical, he tells himself. That evening, as Julian tucks the twins into bed, Rose clutches his hand. Papa, will the pretty lady be our new mama? Yes, darling. Lady Seraphina will take good care of you. Edward, or Teddy, always more serious, asks quietly, will you still be here too, Papa? The question pierces Julian. Always, he promises, though he knows his duties often keep him away. Clara Bennett has been working at Ashcroft Manor for 8 months, a young woman of 23 with honest eyes and gentle hands. She started as a lower maid, but was promoted to the nursery after the previous nurse took ill. The children adore her. She notices things others miss, the way Teddy's shoulders tense when Lady Seraphina enters a room, how Rose hides her favorite doll when the lady visits, the stiffness in Lady Seraphina's smile when she thinks no one is watching. One afternoon, Clara brings tea to the drawing room where Seraphina sits with the twins. She arrives just as Seraphina grips Rose's wrist, her voice low and sharp. I said, sit still. Do not make me repeat myself again. Rose's lip trembles. Teddy moves protectively closer to his sister. Clara clears her throat loudly as she enters. Seraphina immediately releases Rose and transforms her expression into warmth. Ah, tea! How lovely! Children, thank your papa's thoughtful staff. Clara catches Teddy's eyes. He looks relieved by her arrival. Julian is scheduled to leave for London on business, 3 days of meetings with bankers and investors. The morning of his departure, he notices something odd. Rose won't look at him during breakfast, and Teddy keeps glancing nervously at Seraphina, who sits at the far end of the table, perfectly poised. I'll miss you terribly, Seraphina says to Julian, her hand resting lightly on his arm. But the children and I shall become better acquainted. It's the perfect opportunity. After breakfast, Julian calls for his valet and carriage. The household watches from windows as the Duke's coach rolls down the drive and disappears beyond the gates. Hidden in the empty East Wing gamekeeper's cottage on the estate grounds, Julian has decided to watch. A nagging instinct, perhaps the letter Clara slipped under his study door 2 nights earlier, has driven him to this deception. Your Grace, the letter had read in careful script, I fear for the young master and miss when you are away. I have seen things that trouble me greatly. I pray I am mistaken, but I beg you to observe for yourself. A worried servant. It was unsigned, but Julian recognized Clara's handwriting from nursery logs. Clara arrives at the nursery at dawn to find the children already awake, sitting rigidly on their beds. Lady Seraphina stands before them, dressed immaculately despite the early hour. Good morning, my lady, Clara says carefully. Miss Bennett, you're early. Seraphina's tone is cool. The children usually wake at this hour. I bring their breakfast. That won't be necessary. I've instructed the kitchen that meals will be served on my schedule now. The children have been eating far too frequently. It makes them sluggish." Clara's stomach tightens. "But they're growing children, my lady. They need—" "I am well aware of what children need," Seraphina interrupts. "His Grace has entrusted their care to me during his absence. You will follow my instructions." Rose's stomach audibly growls. Seraphina's gaze snaps to her. "What did I say about making unnecessary noises?" Sorry," Rose whispers. Clara's hands clench around the tray she's carrying. She sets it down carefully. "Shall I inform cook of the new schedule, my lady?" "I've already done so. You may go." Clara hesitates, looking at the children. Teddy meets her eyes, a silent plea. She gives the smallest nod and leaves, her mind racing. Hidden in the servants' passages, which he explored as a boy, Julian watches through a concealed panel. His jaw tightens as he witnesses Seraphina dismiss breakfast. He forces himself to remain still, to see more before acting. Clara arrives with lessons books, hoping to at least occupy the children. She finds them standing in the corner of the nursery, faces to the wall. "What's happened?" she asks. Lady Seraphina sits in a chair, embroidery in her lap. Edward was impudent. He asked when they might eat. Rose laughed. This is the consequence of indulgence, children who question authority and giggle at impropriety. "They're 4 years old, my lady." Which is precisely why correction is essential now. Seraphina doesn't look up from her needlework. "They will stand there until luncheon. Perhaps hunger will teach them discipline." Clara's stomach tightens. "But they're growing children, my lady. They need—" "I am well aware of what children need." Seraphina's voice is ice. "Leave us, Miss Bennett. I won't have servants undermining my methods." Clara retreats to the hallway, hands shaking. She cannot leave them. But if she defies Lady Seraphina openly, she'll be dismissed, and the children will have no one. She finds Mrs. Hensworth, the head housekeeper, a stern but fair woman who has served the Duke's family for 30 years. "Mrs. Hensworth, I must speak with you. It concerns the children." The housekeeper's expression sharpens. "What is it, girl?" Clara tells her everything, the withheld meals, the harsh punishments, the fear she sees growing in Teddy and Rose's eyes. Mrs. Hensworth's lips press into a thin line. "These are serious accusations against the Duke's intended." "I know, but I've seen it with my own eyes, and I believe His Grace should know. I wrote to him, but he's in London now." "You wrote to the Duke?" Mrs. Hensworth looks alarmed. "Clara, I know it was bold, perhaps too bold, but someone must speak for those children." Mrs. Hensworth studies her for a long moment. Finally, she nods slowly. "The Duke will return in 3 days. Until then, we watch, carefully, and document what we see." Julian, still hidden, watches as Seraphina enters the nursery before dawn. The children are sleeping. She wakes them roughly. "Up. Both of you." Teddy rubs his eyes, confused. "But it's still dark, Lady Seraphina." "I decide when you wake. You will dress yourselves, no help from servants. You will make your beds perfectly. You will sit silently until I return. If I hear a single word between you, there will be consequences." Rose starts to cry softly. Seraphina's expression hardens. "What did I just say about making unnecessary noises?" Sorry," Rose whispers. Clara's hands clench around the tray she's carrying. She sets it down carefully. "Shall I inform cook of the new schedule, my lady?" "I've already done so. You may go." Clara hesitates, looking at the children. Teddy meets her eyes, a silent plea. She gives the smallest nod and leaves, her mind racing. Clara arrives with the dawn tray, prepared secretly in defiance of orders. Through the door, she hears Rose's muffled crying. She knocks firmly and enters without waiting. "My lady, I gave explicit orders." Claire's eyes take in the scene. The children, exhausted and frightened, attempting to smooth their bedsheets with shaking hands. Rose's tear-stained face, Teddy's protective stance in front of his sister. Something shifts in Clara. She sets the tray down and kneels before the children, ignoring Seraphina entirely. "Good morning, Teddy. Good morning, Rose. You must be hungry. I've brought porridge and honey, just as you like." "Miss Bennett," Seraphina's voice could cut glass. "You forget yourself." Clara stands slowly, turning to her. "No, my lady. I remember myself perfectly. I remember that I am employed to care for these children, and they are hungry. You are employed to follow orders. I'm employed by the Duke, and the Duke would never starve his children." The room falls silent. Seraphina rises, her composure cracking at the edges. "You dare speak to me this way, a common maid? I dare speak for children who cannot speak for themselves. You will regret this insolence. When His Grace returns, I will see you dismissed without reference. You'll never work in a respectable house again." Clara feels fear curl in her stomach, but she doesn't waver. "If that's the price for keeping these children safe, I'll pay it gladly." Hidden in the passage, Julian has heard enough, but he waits, wanting to see how Clara handles the situation, curious about the woman who would sacrifice her livelihood for his children. Seraphina moves toward Clara threateningly. "Give me that tray." "No." "I said give me it, and I said no." Clara's voice shakes slightly, but she stands firm. "You may dismiss me, you may threaten me, but while I'm still in this room, these children will eat." Seraphina's hand flashes out and strikes Clara across the face. The sharp crack echoes. Clara staggers but doesn't fall. Teddy cries out. Rose bursts into sobs. That's when the door opens. Julian stands in the doorway. For a moment, no one moves. Seraphina's hand is still raised. Clara's cheek bears a bright red mark, and the children stare in shock. "Papa!" Teddy's voice breaks the spell. Julian enters slowly, his face a mask of cold fury. "Seraphina, step away from Miss Bennett." "Julian, Your Grace, I can explain." Seraphina's composure shatters. This servant was insubordinate. She refused direct orders. She spoke to me with disrespect. "I heard everything," Julian says quietly. "Every word from the moment you entered this nursery this morning." Seraphina pales. "You've been here?" "I never left." He moves to Clara, gently tilting her face to examine the mark. "Are you injured?" Clara can barely speak, shock and relief warring inside. "No, Your Grace. I'm well." Julian turns to his children, kneeling before them. "Teddy, Rose, come here." They run to him and he gathers them close. Over their heads, he looks at Seraphina with contempt. "You struck a woman who was protecting my children. You starved them. You terrorized them. In my house." "They needed discipline," Seraphina says desperately. "You're too soft with them. They run wild." "They are 4 years old," Julian's voice cracks like a whip. "They lost their mother. They needed love, not a tyrant. I was doing what was necessary to make them proper. You were doing what pleased your cruel nature." He stands, still holding his children. "Mrs. Hensworth." The housekeeper appears immediately. She had been waiting in the corridor. "Escort Lady Seraphina to the Rose Room. She will remain there until her belongings are packed. Send word to our father that the engagement is ended." "You cannot do this," Seraphina hisses. "My father will ruin you. The contracts—" "Let him try. I would rather lose everything than give my children to you." "You fool! You're choosing a maid over me? Over your family's survival?" "I'm choosing my children's safety over everything, including you." As Mrs. Hensworth leads Seraphina, the protesting, Julian finally allows himself to breathe. He looks at Clara, who stands trembling, her hand pressed to her reddened cheek. Miss Bennett. Clara. He voices softens. Thank you. She curtsies awkwardly, tears threatening. I only did what anyone should have done, Your Grace. No, you did what no one else dared to do. You stood between harm.
The engagement announcement sends shockwaves through society. Julian's aunt arrives in a fury. Have you lost your senses completely? Lady Pemberton storms into his study without knocking. The entire ton is laughing at you. Let them laugh. Lord Whitmore is spreading vicious rumors. He's calling you mentally unstable, claiming the governess bewitched you. He can claim whatever soothes his wounded pride. Julian, this isn't a joke. Your creditors are nervous. 3 families have sent regrets for events they had previously accepted. You're being cut. Then I'll spend more time at home with my family. Lady Pemberton throws up her hands. You're impossible, just like your father. Noble intentions, no sense of self-preservation. My father taught me that a man's character matters more than his popularity. She softens slightly. He did say that, didn't he? She sighs. I suppose if you're determined to do this, we should do it properly. The wedding will be here, small and dignified. I'll help Clara with everything. She'll need extensive guidance. Julian smiles. Thank you, Aunt. Don't thank me. I'm doing this for those children. They've had enough upheaval. The engagement announcement sends shockwaves through society. Julian's aunt arrives in a fury. Have you lost your senses completely? Lady Pemberton storms into his study without knocking. The entire ton is laughing at you. Let them laugh. Lord Whitmore is spreading vicious rumors. He's calling you mentally unstable, claiming the governess bewitched you. He can claim whatever soothes his wounded pride. Julian, this isn't a joke. Your creditors are nervous. 3 families have sent regrets for events they'd previously accepted. You're being cut. Then I'll spend more time at home with my family. Lady Pemberton throws up her hands. You impossible, just like your father. Noble intentions, no sense of self-preservation. My father taught me that a man's character matters more than his popularity. She softens slightly. He did say that, didn't he? She sighs. I suppose if you're determined to do this, we should do it properly. The wedding will be here, small and dignified. I'll help Clara with everything. She'll need extensive guidance. Julian smiles. Thank you, Aunt. Don't thank me. I'm doing this for those children. They've had enough upheaval. Clara's transformation. Lady Pemberton takes Clara in hand with surprising gentleness. You're going to be a duchess, girl. Like it or not, people will judge you on every detail. We have work to do. They work on deportment, speech patterns, household management, social etiquette. Clara is an eager student, though she sometimes feels overwhelmed. I'll never remember all of this, she says one afternoon, nearly in tears over place settings. You will, Lady Pemberton assures her, and what you don't remember, you'll improvise. You're intelligent and kind. That counts for more than knowing which fork to use. You've changed your mind about me? I still think Julian is making his life harder than necessary, but I've watched you with those children. You love them genuinely. That's rare, especially in our circles. She pauses. And you love my nephew too. That's also clear. Clara blushes. Is it so obvious? Only to anyone with eyes. He looks at you the way he looked at Catherine, like you're the answer to a question he didn't know he was asking. The wedding takes place on a bright February morning in Ashcroft's private chapel. The guest list is small. Family, close friends, and the household staff whom Julian insists must attend. Clara wears a simple gown of cream silk, her dark hair adorned with winter roses. She carries a small bouquet, also roses, Rose's insistence. Teddy and Rose walk her down the aisle, one on each side. Rose scatters flower petals. Teddy carries the rings on a velvet pillow, his face serious with the weight of responsibility. When Clara reaches the altar, Julian takes her hands. His eyes are bright with emotion. The ceremony is brief, but beautiful. When Julian says, "I do," his voice rings clear and certain. When Clara repeats the words, hers trembles only slightly. The kiss is chaste but heartfelt. As they turn to face their guests, Teddy tugs on Julian's coat. "Are you our papa and mama now?" he asks loudly. Laughter ripples through the chapel. "Yes," Julian says, lifting his son. "We're a family now." Rose demands to be lifted too. Clara obliges, and they stand together, Duke, Duchess, and their children, while the small congregation applauds. The scandal and the silence. Society's response is mixed. Some doors close permanently. Invitations to certain events vanish, but others, surprisingly, open. A letter arrives from the Duchess of Northfield, a formidable woman Julian has always respected. "Your Grace, I hear you've married for love rather than advancement. How refreshingly unfashionable. My husband and I would be delighted to call upon you and your new Duchess when convenient. Any woman who risks her position to protect children has my respect. Yours, Northfield." More letters follow, from people Julian had forgotten, old friends, those who value substance over appearance. Lord Whitmore's rumors eventually exhaust themselves. When investigation reveals that Lady Seraphina has been rejected by 2 other suitors for temperamental unsuitability, sympathy shifts towards Julian. The financial situation remains difficult, but not impossible. Julian sells a London property he rarely used. He negotiates new arrangements with creditors. The estate begins to stabilize. Spring at Ashcroft. 6 months after the wedding, spring transforms Ashcroft's gardens. Clara walks through them with Teddy and Rose, pointing out flowers and birds. Julian watches from the terrace, papers forgotten on the table beside him. Mrs. Hensworth approaches with tea. "She's good for them, for all of you," the housekeeper observes. "She is," Julian agrees. And the house feels alive again, not like it did in those dark years. He thinks about those years, the grief, the emptiness, the desperate engagement that almost destroyed everything. Then he thinks about Clara's courage, her letter, the choice to fake his absence and witness the truth. "Mrs. Hensworth, do you remember when Miss Bennett first came to work here?" "Of course. Quiet thing, very nervous, but good with her hands and good with people." "Did you ever imagine she'd become the Duchess?" "No, Your Grace, but I'm not surprised. Quality shows itself, whatever the station." Clara looks up from the garden and waves. Rose waves too, jumping and calling for him to come down. Julian sets aside his papers and descends to join his family. As he reaches them, Clara smiles. "We're planning an expedition to the stream. Rose wants to catch tadpoles. Teddy insists there are fish. Will you arbitrate?" "I'll do better than that. I'll join you." They walk together through the awakening estate. Duke, Duchess, Edward, and Rose, their laughter carrying across the grounds. Behind them, Ashcroft Manor stands solid and warm, no longer a house of grief and duty, but a home filled with love and second chances. Julian's study, late evening. He's working through correspondence when Clara enters, carrying a blanket-wrapped bundle. She's finally asleep. Clara whispers. Julian rises immediately, crossing to look down at their daughter, baby Catherine, named for her predecessor with her mother's dark hair and her father's blue eyes. How are Teddy and Rose? He asks. Asleep too, though Rose insisted on telling her baby sister 3 stories first. She's going to spoil her terribly. As will you, Clara teases. They settle onto the sofa together, the baby between them. In the fireplace, they look at their daughter's tiny, perfect face. Do you ever regret it? Clara asks softly. The scandal? The closed doors? The financial struggles? Julian wraps his arm around her shoulders. Never. Not once. Not even when Lord Whitmore cut you at the opera? Not even then. I have everything that matters. Clara leans her head against his shoulder. We've been lucky. We've been brave. There's a difference. Outside, snow begins to fall again, the first of the season. Inside, the family sleeps, safe and warm and together. And in the morning there will be laughter